Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining and welcome to our webinar, Unlock Advanced Features, Modernize Your Database Beyond MariaDB. My name is Yukti Divedi and I will be your moderator for today. So one of my main jobs here at SingleStore is to organize weekly AI webinars, and we organize 2 or maybe 3 webinars per week. So stay tuned for these sessions. If these are interesting to you, please RSVP right now. And on October 7th, we are presenting free DB face-offs, MySQL versus Postgres versus SingleStore free tier. So this is an on-demand webinar. It was very popular in the past, so we're just bringing this back. And on October 15th, this is a webinar with Amazon, building enterprise-grade RAG with AWS agents and SingleStore. And we have speakers that are externally joining us from Amazon and some experts from SingleStore. So this topic is interesting to you, please feel free to RSVP right now. You can just go to the landing page directly by scanning the QR code and just register. You might also notice we have an auto RSVP feature for our future AI webinars. So in this feature, you don't exactly need to sign up for each webinar live. It's just an option for those that don't want to attend the sessions, and they can get a recording available when it is after the webinar. It will automatically be emailed to you. So if that's interesting to you, please check box that one, and we hope to see you all in the future. So if you go to the next slide, we are also bringing in an conference that is in San Francisco. So if you want to attend an AI conference, please feel free to register for SingleStore now. And it's great for networking or anyone that wants to check out the latest scene of AI in the Bay Area. And you can meet people from SingleStore and other guests that are going to be there. So check this out. And I also have a few discount coupons available with me. So if you want, you can actually hit me up, and like I'll be happy to provide them for you, like on LinkedIn. So definitely it's a great way to network, socialize, and just attend a good AI conference if like that's interesting to you. So moving on, coming back to today's topic, you are welcome to participate in the session uh, throughout the entire duration of this webinar using the Zoom Q&A button, which is present at the bottom of your console. And anyone that tries out SingleStore notebooks today will be entered for a chance to win either branded new AirPods or Meta's new Ray-Ban LLM smart glasses. So this is just to boost engagement and like so that everyone can have a more hands-on experience. And uh, during the webinar, like as Akmal will walk you through everything, so just simply click the link. I will be providing everything in the chat, or maybe just scan the QR code. And you may know that SingleStore has had a free trial offer for many years, but just in the past few weeks, we have also announced a new free share tier, which Akmal will talk about a bit later today. So moving on to the announcements, I'm very happy to uh, invite Akmal to be our speaker today. He's a very regular speaker at our webinars. So, and a lot of his sessions, they really do very well in terms of numbers and uh, actual return of whatever we are doing. Like, so thanks Akmal for joining, and thanks everyone for making our time to attend this webinar. And please take it away, Akmal. Thanks for joining. Oh, you seem to be on mute.
Yeah. It's okay. I'm just a bit slow. It's Friday and it's 6 p.m. is where I am, and the mind is a bit slow. So I'm sorry, I was a little bit slow on there. So thank you very much for the introduction there, Yukti, and thank you all for joining from wherever you are. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And if I check my phone here, yeah, it's a kind of 5 minutes past 6 p.m. here on a Friday. Okay, so not the greatest of days to end the week, but hopefully the webinar will be interesting for me. Certainly, it was an interesting experience for me, just doing a bit of research and finding some appropriate material to share with you today. Okay, so we'll do a fair few slides, not too many. The demo itself is fairly short, and I'll demonstrate that for you towards the end. So I'll do a bit of an introduction. We'll talk about MariaDB a little bit, okay? I'm not going to do a feature-by-feature comparison simply because we haven't got time, okay? It's only less than an hour now. And therefore, the goal here is to perhaps address some of the concerns that you may have around the technology, both from a business and technical perspective. Excuse me. And then we'll do a customer case study as well, nuclear security, And then I'll present some migration tools and strategies for you and some additional assets that might be helpful to you. And I'll do a short demo, and then we'll just summarize towards the end there. Okay, so there we go. And let's just do an introduction here. So as we always start off with the usual 2 slides about the company, always nice to provide a bit of context about who we are, where we've come from. So we have been around for quite some time, as you can see, from all the way back from 2011. Originally started off as a product focusing just on in-memory processing for OLTP. Okay, and the name was MemSQL. Both the company and the product were called that. Sometime later, added support for columnar store, OLAP processing, and therefore it didn't make sense to call yourself MemSQL anymore. So sometime later, just rebranded to SingleStore. It took a little bit of time, as you can see. There's a bit of a gap there, but that made sense. And today we are a company that has over $100 million in annual recurring revenue. Okay, so we are pretty solid there, and we've got over 350 global customers as well. I really need to get Brand to update these figures. I think these are, it's been a while since we've been using these numbers. They do need updating. Some investors along the bottom there, as you can see, and we have, as you can see from the graph there, certainly the revenue seems to have pivoted round about this time. I mean, that's the kind of inflection point there. And certainly as far as the customer growth as well, there seems to be another point here in terms of getting considerable growth in customers. Okay, so architecturally then, this universal storage handles both of these types of data processing, both the OLTP and the OLAP. Single table type will now do this. And we do integrate with lots of great external tools. This is not an exhaustive list, just some examples. Kafka, for example, Apache Spark. Maybe you've got data in S3 buckets, Hadoop, HDFS. And incidentally, the demo itself that I'll show you a little bit later on, we're going to use some CDC technology, which is actually going to take some data from a couple of external systems to this environment. So you'll see that I'm going to connect to, well, it's going to be MySQL, okay? But there's compatibility, okay? As you know, that MariaDB is a derivative of MySQL. In fact, SingleStore, up until not so long ago, using the JDBC driver for MariaDB. There you go. I mean, the product itself is MySQL wire compatible, and SingleStore is as well. And we'll see that you can ingest data from a variety of sources into SingleStore. It's very, very straightforward and very easy to use. We do work on the 3 major cloud platforms. You can run on-prem as well. In the portal, I'll show you there is a section where you can get access to a license key that will allow you to install the product in your own environment. And that's 4 nodes, okay? But it's the full product. So the only limitation is the number of nodes that you can install, which is limited to 4 for the free version, but it is the full product. It is not, limited in any other way. A Docker container is available as well, but Yukti will share the links in the chat for you. So please do follow and sign up. Okay, so it's fairly simple. It's singlestore.com/ I think it's cloud-trial/. And we do support lots of data types as well. So relational is where it came from, but there's geospatial, full text search through the Lucene. We have a customer actually using it for key value as well. Very interesting. JSON support has been there for quite some time. Even better with SingleStore Kai. Okay, so if you're working with MongoDB, document databases, that could be a great way to get your JSON data into SingleStore. Time series, and of course, vectors. Now, today, everybody's got vector support, right? So that's the thing. But as you may recall from the previous slide I showed you, if you are sharp-eyed, you'll see that SingleStore has had vector support for quite a while, since 2017, 2018 timeframe. So it's mature, okay? It's tested in the field, robust. I think it was a financial customer that originally requested this capability. And earlier this year, we made it even better. So a dedicated vector type, ANN indexing, lots of other nice features. Everything is very well documented in the documentation. And of course, from time to time, we do cover these technologies in various webinars. applications, real-time analytics, and if you're familiar with things like Tableau, for example, very easy to connect them. The technology that I use, and I mention this a lot, is Metabase. And actually, yesterday, I was just going through some old articles that I'd written. There was one that was done last year, and this was using some ad tech data that's coming through a Kafka broker. And I was feeding it into MongoDB Atlas and then using change data capture from MongoDB Atlas into SingleStore and then passing that on to Metabase. And I actually installed the latest jar file of Metabase just to test that, everything was working still. And indeed it was. I mean, within a couple of minutes, I had it talking happily to SingleStore and then creating the visualizations and the charts. And then it's nice to see things actually in real time, because as that Kafka feed is putting the data into the Atlas, MongoDB Atlas, it's getting propagated using the CDC pipeline into SingleStore. And then, of course, Metabase sees it as well, and it updates and refreshes every minute. So the numbers and the charts change as the data comes in. Okay, so very briefly then, just to show you a little bit more detail about the product. So I mentioned pipelines already. Okay, and we have this kind of multi-tier architecture. So I've talked about the in-memory aspect of it already, which is great for fast ingestion. Okay, there is still a capability. You can define a table as something called row store. If you want to specifically keep it just in memory, maybe it's a small kind of reference table, for example, or hot data that you want to access all the time, you can do that. And that's a great way to keep the data always in memory, access it very, very quickly. There is this kind of persistent cache, if you like, which is the columnar store, great for analytics. It's actually stored on disk, okay? And you can see that we've got the animation here. If you look closely, you'll see the lines for this one, for the row store, are kind of horizontal, implying that the row sort of based access. And then if you look at the animation here, you'll see that this kind of changes. So you've got these vertical bars, which is implying the columnar access, but then notice that it's kind of a combination of both the row and the column. That's the unified storage, okay? That's giving you the ability. And for most access patterns and queries, that might be perfectly fine. You don't need to mess around with defining these tables unless you want to do so for some specific reason. And then, of course, the third layer of storage, Cloud Object Store, okay, for long-term storage, cold data that you're not going to access very often, but you may need it for historical reasons, for example, and from time to time, you want to read that in and be able to run queries over that. The architecture of the product itself, it's shared nothing. It's scale out, distributed SQL database system. Okay, so you have this concept of aggregators, and you have this concept of leaf nodes, okay, where the data are actually stored. And here you can see these kind of disks that are attached, okay? So this is the shared nothing approach. There is redundancy. So for example, if you were to lose some part of your cluster, let's say this node goes down or this one goes down, then the system can handle these kind of failover situations and you can still run your queries. So that's another very useful feature. Okay, so streaming data in, three-tier architecture, universal storage that we talked about, multi-model capabilities I mentioned on the previous slide, shared nothing architecture. So there is some, considerable effort that's gone into building this technology out since the inception of both the company and the product way back in 2011. Okay, so let's move on a little bit then to talk about MariaDB. And so you have, if you are a user, again, I'm not trying to knock the technology. I mean, I've worked in database systems and research and academia for a long time. And one of the lessons that I've learned is you don't try and upset people. Okay, you try and empathize. You kind of see it from their point of view. If you are a user, that's absolutely fine. I mean, you pick the technology for some specific reason and it met your needs at the time. The world changes, okay? Things happen. And it's therefore, certainly from a business perspective, if we have a look at what's happened to the company over the last year or two, certainly stock fell sharply after its IPO. raising concerns about stability and viability. Financial warning, issued a financial risk warning in 2023 last year. Struggles with revenue led to layoffs, so they did let quite a number of people go. And then not so long ago, very recently, K1 took MariaDB private in August 2024, okay? And therefore, that acquisition may be a little bit unsettling for some of you if you are a user or a customer at the moment. That's something that might be troubling you. That happens. It's okay. I mean, I've gone through acquisition myself in the past. I used to work for Infomix, and I was acquired by IBM, and there was, the technology was awesome. But you're a very small player in a very big market. Sometimes, the 600-pound gorilla comes along and scoops you up and buys you, which is fine. But, IBM did an awesome job in terms of maintaining and enhancing the technology even before they did for DB2. And they, acquired a lot of happy customers along the way as well. So sometimes these things work out very well. Sometimes they don't. That's life. From a technical perspective, Sky SQL was discontinued, affecting cloud offerings. I think there's another technology they have. Was it expand, extend? I can't remember now. You can correct me in the chat and set me straight there. That was also discontinued. Tough competition from AWS and Google Cloud. Well, everybody faces competition from these cloud providers. I mean, they are awesome in terms of the amount of technology offerings that they provide, and often they take these open source offerings in particular, they are able to scale them out and provide, suitable sort of cloud-based versions of these. It is something that all of us face. I mean, not just MariaDB. Innovation reduction, service and job cuts will almost inevitably hinder future product development. If you lose good talent, it goes somewhere else. Inevitably, that means that you can't offer the kind of capabilities and features that you may wish to in order to compete in a very sort of difficult market. And today, a lot of database technologies is very much kind of off the shelf, all right? You have a great choice out there, and you can go and pick and choose the products that are suitable for you. For us who are users, that's great. On the other end of the scale, there are companies at the scale of Uber, for example, or Facebook, or Google, who have the need to be able to scale out to a far larger level, and they can customize these products to meet those requirements. That's very challenging. Often the technical expertise and the skill to do that is not widely available. These people are real experts in what they're doing. And so for those kind of companies, yes, they can take these products sometimes and be able to scale them out, scale them up, and be able to, do enormous kind of workloads on them. But they've taken some decisions in terms of how to do that. For us, the average kind of user, the person who's looking for a solid product, it becomes much more difficult. We don't have the time, resources, or the money to be able to do those kind of things. And again, open source tensions, private ownership could strain relations with open source community. I'm a great fan of open source technology, but the thing is that within the open source world, it is very, very difficult to make any money out of the technology. So a lot of companies tend to open source. You have a certain level of support and capability in the product, and if you need advanced features, you essentially have to come back to the vendor and pay for those advanced features. And going forward, it's a little bit difficult to predict what's going to happen here. And then the last point there, hard to refocus. Business model migration to AI and cloud could be too much change too fast. So I understand the company is really trying to focus on that. Everybody's an AI company today, okay? So, and everybody's a cloud company, all right? We're all there, and we're all trying to compete for a slice of the pie. It becomes difficult if you are a small player in the field. Invariably, either you get acquired or you go out of business. And I've seen this in database technology over my career, 30 years working in database systems, from the early days when object-oriented databases were the hot technology of the day, all the way through XML, NoSQL, and onto sort of scale-out systems today. So some things to consider there, okay? Some food for thought for you. Perhaps some of those issues, both the business and the technical, you can relate to, might, ring a bell, might be something that you're concerned about, but we can help, okay? Now, one of the key things that a lot of enterprises go through is this kind of phase of having a product to use and trying to solve some specific problem. So you imagine maybe just doing sort of batch ingest, for example, at the moment. And then over time, there's more things that you need to do, some operational requirements. You might want JSON support that could be supported directly in the product, for example, or it might come through some third-party capability. And then, of course, you need some caching. In the world of NoSQL, for example, Redis is an awesome key value and often used as a cache in front of MySQL, for example. I've come across lots of cases that I've heard companies doing that. Search capability, Elastic. SingleStore has Lucene built in to offer that capability as well. And then, of course, other things like streaming data, for example, maybe through Kafka. Analytics, you got a data warehouse. In this particular case, I think we're trying to show Snowflake there, and so on. You can see, maybe using Spark for AI ML. It becomes quite challenging for a business person in terms of licensing and cost for all of this, and technically from a developer in terms of understanding all these different offerings, how to integrate them together cleanly, and how to get the best out of them. Well, SingleStore can offer you a solution. Okay, we talked about the multi-model already. We can do the batch ingest, the operational requirements, can plug into third-party systems. Kafka is a breeze to utilize. Transactions and analytics all built into the one product. And of course, easy integration with Spark as well through the Spark connector. So SingleStore can address many of those technological requirements that we saw in the previous slide. Okay, so one product, okay, hence the name Single, to give you all those capabilities. And in case you're wondering, well, how does this actually work? Well, here are some examples of customers that we've helped move from a variety of these kind of combinations of technologies to SingleStore. So we've got a couple of examples here. Fathom Analytics, for example, MySQL plus Redis plus Amazon DynamoDB. We've got another example here, Google Cloud, SQL, MySQL, Postgres, Hulu, Apache Storm, Druid, Armis, Postgres plus Elastic. So essentially we have the pedigree, the expertise, assisting customers to move from these kind of database sprawl-like environments onto SingleStore, and then helping them cut down their costs, both in terms of what they pay, the various vendors, the licensing fees, the management, longer term, and again, helping the developers as well in terms of narrowing down the technology options so that it makes it easier for them to be able to cope with the requirements for the future. Performance is always one of the tick boxes that I think often we see. Customers look for good performance. That's a requirement these days. It's a challenging world again. There's so many things that we need to do with data, and sometimes those decisions have to be made very, very quickly. And this is something from Anuvu. And we can send you the link to this webinar that was actually done. Okay, so there you can see one chart. So in this particular graph, you can see on the right-hand side, there's a couple of bar charts that you can see there. Those are all MariaDB. SingleStore, if you'll need to squint and use a microscope, you can see a few tiny bumps along the x-axis there, and that is SingleStore. And again, I spent 6 years doing benchmarking databases for doctoral research, and it is very, very challenging. I know. I mean, I worked with industry to find examples and then be able to build tests. Apples for apples comparisons are very difficult to do. Environments are sometimes very different. And again, reproducibility is one of these things that is important. But as I said before, we'll be very happy to send you the link, and I'll give the URL for this webinar to Yukti. So in her follow-up email, she'll send you the link to this. So if you want to get details from someone not associated with SingleStore that's actually done a detailed performance comparison, and not just MariaDB, I think a couple of other technologies as well, Snowflake as well is in there in the mix, and they'll explain their process and how they actually evaluated these different products. Okay, so quick customer case study. Okay, so this is Nucleus Security. So they replaced MariaDB with SingleStore, And the key results there you can see on the right-hand side. But let's take a look. What was their challenge? The challenge was that the product, the MariaDB, could not handle concurrency. That was the issue. And as a consequence, it resulted in slow performance for dashboards, cybersecurity threat detection. And as you know, that is a very important issue today. We all face this, even down to individual people, but companies are often seeing these threats all the time. Okay, so enterprise customers were open to cyber attacks for days at a time. That is unacceptable. Okay, you need to respond quickly. If something's happening, you've got to block it, you've got to stop it, you've got to investigate, see where it's coming from, and be able to take remediation steps. So what was the solution? So they migrated from MariaDB to SingleStore, and they did it in a week. You know, phenomenal in terms of the achievement there. So as I said before, SingleStore itself is MySQL Wire compatible. There is very good coverage in terms of the compatibility between SingleStore and MariaDB and MySQL. You're looking at around about 95%, okay? It isn't 100% because remember, we are a scale-out distributed database system. There are things that we do that they do not do. And then there's a few things that they do that we still haven't quite implemented, although we're getting better all the time, okay? It's actually documented on the website in the documentation. And again, it's something we can share with you if you're interested. But generally speaking, professional services can work with you. So if there's things that, for example, some feature or capability of the product that is not supported in SingleStore, often there are relatively easy workarounds. We can do that, okay? So that is not a showstopper, okay? We can work with you. Key outcomes then, 60 times performance increase in vulnerability scans per hour, pardon me, 20 times faster performance for slowest scans, 3 times reduction in AWS infrastructure costs. That's significant in terms of bringing the costs down and managing that. And then customers able to patch 10 times the vulnerabilities. I have trouble with that word, sorry, as before, with only half the staff, okay? And an opportunity for increased market share, okay? So real business benefits that accrued as a result of this process of moving from MariaDB to SingleStore. We do have other examples as well, okay? But again, I'm conscious of time, and there's always so much to cover in these webinars. But that is a very good example of a customer that came to us, and we helped them and moved them, and they saw both technical and business benefits. Okay, so what's available to help you in terms of migration, you know, if you are thinking about that? And so one of the possibilities that we have, and Yukti mentioned this a little bit earlier, is the free shared tier. So this gives you some capability, and this is free for life. So you get a database, 4 gigabytes of uncompressed storage, 10 tables. Okay, great way to start. I've been using the free tier now pretty much for most of my webinars for a while. There are some instances where there are some SingleStore technologies that don't quite work yet on the free tier. CDC is one of them. So if you try and run that in this environment, it won't work. You'll get errors, okay? So now, will that be offered in this environment? I don't know, okay? I mean, this is something that engineering and the product managers will decide in due course. Hopefully it will, okay? That's my wish. Certainly within the free share tier gives you a great opportunity to test out lots of things. Pipelines we've talked about, user-defined functions, vector search, ANN index searching if you're working with vectors. Prototypes, so you can use the built-in Jupyter environment, which we're going to use very shortly. I'll show you that. And of course, if you're doing things beyond Python, say using Node.js, a very easy integration as well. We've got one of these awesome YouTube you know, sort of celebrities who writes code in Node, and she's been pumping out a couple of these wonderful videos demonstrating, you know, these kind of applications that she's built using Node and talking to SingleStore for storage. So, you know, everything from indexing to kind of chatbot like technology. I mean, Yukti knows who I'm referring to, but they're, you know, practical examples. And BI tools, no problem there. All of the, you know, sort of favorite tools will plug in. JDBC, ODBC support, very easy to do. Currently, it's available on AWS, US East 1. Hopefully more regions and cloud service providers will come in due course as well. But this is a great way to start. You know, if you want to just test the technology, as part of the cloud trial, your sign-up process when you get into the portal, they even create the workspace and the database for you now. There's nothing for you to do. It's there. You log in and you've got the resources available immediately. You can hit the ground running. You can start playing around with the technology, investigating it, running some code, and so on. Okay, so that's a very useful way to do it. Great way to start. The CDC pipeline, I'm going to show you that momentarily. That is something that you might want to consider. So if, for example, you're interested in SingleStore, but not quite sure yet whether it's the right fit for you, then keep your existing investment in MariaDB, for example, but use this pipeline capability to get the data into SingleStore. And remember, this is not just a snapshot. Initially, when the load takes place, yes, it's a snapshot, but if new data arrive into MariaDB, that gets propagated into SingleStore as well. And therefore, you have the opportunity to keep your existing investment, test out SingleStore and its analytics capabilities, and so on. All the good stuff that we talked about in the last few slides. Hopefully, you'll like it. And if you do, then there's the opportunity to migrate everything across to the platform, and you no longer need to maintain that pipeline. So as long as both systems are up and running and that pipeline is running, data will propagate across from MariaDB into SingleStore. Other mechanisms, well, a little bit of, having to do a bit of sort of finger work there, MySQL dump, that's a good way to do it. I actually used that not so long ago for a project as well, very useful. And then, of course, there are other third-party kind of ETL options as well, of which we'll have a look here in a moment. But to change data capture, we've got two systems that are fully supported at the moment. That's MongoDB, okay, and MySQL. Others are in the pipeline. So, for example, Postgres and other systems too. So this is great. I mean, it's fast ingestion, makes life very easy in terms of migrating your data across, and then you avoid complexity and cost of having to do these, writing special scripts or taking sort of dumps of the system out and then having to load them in again, although those are possible too. But this just makes your lives a lot easier in terms of getting that data into the SingleStore environment. ETL I mentioned. Here's just, again, a small list of some of the third parties that we work with: Fivetran, Airbyte, and other tooling as well from these, in quotes, legacy database systems such as Oracle, SAP HANA, and SQL Server, for example. Okay, so again, we can assist with this process. All right, so let me just switch across now. So hopefully you have signed up for the cloud trial. Okay, so remember singlestore.com/cloud-trial/. I left off the / within the last day or two, and I'm feeling frustrated. It keeps coming back to me. I cannot find it. That's the thing that you need to remember. And as you sign up, essentially, it will look a little bit like this. So let me just show you. Okay, so there's my kind of homepage. Hopefully you can see that okay. I ought to make the font size a bit bigger. Let's have a look. So let's just zoom in a bit. Okay, make that a bit bigger and maybe even a bit more. So you can see this. So this is kind of like the landing page, okay? So you got a couple of things that are available to you. So under deployments, for example, you'll see if I click this, I have this shared tier running. All right. Currently, it's looking at the standard tier here. All right. But let me just switch to the shared tier. There we go. Okay, so this is the starter workspace. So as you log in and you scroll down and look at the bottom, automatically you have the necessary compute resources here, and you have a database already created for you. All right. And you can, of course, delete this if you want and then recreate it. That's fine too. But there is, they provide something for you straight away. You can hit the ground running and start using it. And then in terms of connectivity, it's very, very simple. Just click this here, and it gives you a variety of ways to connect. So the CLI client, for example, SQL IDE, an application, or various BI tools. So if we look at CLI client, for example, here it gives that connection string here. Okay, it's MySQL. This is for command line. There you've got the long sort of host name there, the port number, and the database. First time you look at this, when you log in, it will ask you to create this user ID So I took the default that it gave me, and you can set a password as well. So again, it creates a strong password for you. You can choose you can choose to ignore that and create your own, or you create your own strong password. That's absolutely fine. So along the top there, you can see we've got all of these things that you can click on. Okay. So all of that's very easy to use. And then the next thing you want to do is essentially just go here to Data Studio. Okay, on the left side. That's the thing to get into, because here you will see I've got a couple of notebooks already lined up. But if you look at this thing here, okay, which is the tiny little, I'm not sure what that's supposed to represent. My eyes are not very good. But if we click on this, essentially this gives you a couple of options here. So you can store secrets. Okay, that's very useful. So things like tokens, API keys. I use this to store my OpenAI API key. Much easier than having to type it in every time into a notebook. It just picks it up from the environment, and it's in a sort of secrets vault. And then gallery. This is what I wanted to draw your attention to. So gallery is a great way to have a look at various notebooks that are available in this environment. So for example, if you just want to know how to get started, there's a nope, sorry, my magnifier is not working too good when it comes to some of the text here, but this getting started one is a great way to just kind of understand how this all works. And then there's lots of other options here: restore database from AWS S3, and so on and so on. Okay, there's lots of choices, many different things that you could test out. There is this thing here, which is rather useful as well: database performance troubleshooting notebook, that will walk you through the various steps to figure out why your performance might not be good. Okay, I think there's over 50 here that are available. I'm not sure if all of them are listed here. Let me just see how far down I can go. Well, fairly far down. So and the one that I'm going to use today is this one here. Okay, it's unified data analysis, SQL and NoSQL on a single database with Kai. Okay, so Kai, remember, is the MongoDB compatibility that we provide. It's the tool that, so if you think about it, we are not only MySQL wire compatible, but we are MongoDB wire compatible as well. So if you click on that, it'll just load it up. Okay, so I've got something here. Now, as I said before, the CDC technology at the moment doesn't work on the free shared tier. So what I've had to do is I've had to create a standard tier here. Okay. And again, how to do that? Well, just go to deployments. Okay. So when you log in, you've already got something. But if you just look at the top here, this thing, okay, that's got all of your workspaces. And you can see here that I have something here which I created called webinar. Okay, this is my workspace group, and then you can create a new one. Okay, new deployment. So if you do that, here you'll see that the starter one is ghosted out because you're only allowed one, so it won't let me create another one, but I can create standard ones, no problem. And for the standard one, I can choose the name here, workspace group name, just there's a default here. And then I can choose the cloud provider as well. You can see currently it's set to AWS. I can select the region. So for example, I'm in London, so maybe something physically closer will be better, like this. And then just click this. Okay, next. And this is useful because you have the option to select what sort of size you want, how many CPUs, how much RAM. By default, the smallest that you currently get is this S00 here, but you can edit, you can change this, okay? And if we take a look here, you've got quite a number of choices here. And it gets to a point where they've actually ghosted them out. You can see here, S20 onwards, because I think those are really for customers that have got some serious data processing requirements. The biggest one currently is S384, which is a massive 3,072 virtual CPUs, 24 terabytes of RAM. That burns through 432 credits per hour, I think. Yeah, that's it. But the thing is that as part of the sign up for the portal, you get $600 worth of credits as well. Okay, so, and then just click on this thing here to create the workspace. Okay, and then you can see there's a couple of options here as well. You can enable SingleStore Kai, for example, if you wish. There's some other features as well, such as loading in a MarTech data set if you want, and just disable that. And you could enable that, for example, and so on. Okay, now I won't do this, okay, because using this to get a standard workspace stuff does take a few minutes. Okay, remember, it's having to provision the resources for you, do all the plumbing and everything else behind the scenes, get everything up and running for you. Takes a couple of minutes. So what I've done previously is I've already done this, okay, with this thing here, which I've called this workspace webinar. So again, currently I have this as an S00. You can see here, just off the edge there are no databases there. And so what I'll do then is let's go back to Data Studio, have a look at this data analysis, SQL and NoSQL on a single database with Kai. So this is kind of interesting because what we're trying to do is we're trying to take some data from 3 different environments. We've got transactional data stored in MySQL here. And remember, that could be MariaDB, all right? We've got some profile history data stored in MongoDB here. And we've got ATM location data here stored on an S3 bucket. And all 3 of these sources can be consumed using pipelines into SingleStore. And then once it's in SingleStore, we can do queries on all of this data. We consolidate, we bring this all together into one place. And so let me just try and run through this. So I just need to check that it's correctly connected here, okay? Because as I said before, if it's connected to the free tier, it won't work. So I am connected to the standard tier here. So let's just get some libraries installed here, PyMongo, Matplotlib. Okay, just do that. In case there are some issues, I have a backup copy of this, which I ran a little bit earlier on. So I can just, there we go. It's static. So we'll create this database here, which is going to store all of that data from those C sources. It's called Banking Analytics. Okay, let me just see if I can just show you that. So we drop the database, and then we just create it there. Okay, that's it. There is an SDK that's coming out that's going to make this environment a lot easier to use as well. So that's, I think, my colleague Kevin, and he's a wizard with Python. But at the moment, it just reminds us here that we need to check that up here, we now select the database that's been created, which was the banking analytics, which we just did a moment ago. Okay, so let me just make sure I've got that. There we go. So there'll be a way to kind of code this into the notebook itself without having to do the pull down. And so here is what we're doing to get the data from this MySQL environment. So we create this link. We provide the configuration details. Okay, what's the IP address, or how is it referenced, the fully qualified domain name? Things that we are going to exclude. We're not interested in the performance schema. We don't want that. The tables that we do want, okay, domain analytics, transactions, the port number, okay, the fact that we're going to use it securely using SSL mode, and these credentials here, which obviously you're not gonna, you won't want to make these public, but this is fine. I mean, you can use this environment as well. So we set this link up. That's done. And then here, this next line, essentially what this does is it sets up a pipeline, goes away to that remote system, does some inspection of that, looks at the schema, and then creates appropriate tables on the SingleStore side there. Okay, so, and then we're going to use Avro as the format. So it's done, okay? So at the moment, we've basically just interrogated, we've set up this link and said, okay, here's where we want to get the data from. Now we're going to just go away and have a look at that environment, see what's there, what are the tables, what's the structure of the schema and everything, and then we'll just start the pipeline itself. Notice that we didn't have to create any tables on the SingleStore side, okay? So as part of this process, and in fact, if I just insert a new cell just below here, we could say show tables. Let's have a look and see what we've got. Okay, so let's just run this. Okay, so it has found and created this transactions table, and we could then say, okay, describe transactions. If I spelled that correctly, have a look. And here it shows you what the schema looks like. So it's been able to look at the structure of that remote database, look at that specific table, and it's been able to recreate that locally in the SingleStore environment. And that pipeline is now up and running. And we could take a look and ask how many rows have we got back. So select count star from transactions. Let's just execute that. So it's got back a little over 5,000 rows. Okay. So that part is done. And then similarly, we can do this from the other data sources that we've got. So in this case, for the S3, we are actually creating a table here, okay, called ATM locations. And we're setting up a pipeline here, slightly different from what we did up above, where we set up a link. So this is just a standard technique, again, to get vast quantities of data into SingleStore. And we're basically just pointing to the S3 bucket, okay, and then just setting it was the region, and ignore duplicate key errors here, and then just insert it into this table that we created above called ATM locations, okay? So again, remember, we do create the pipeline, but we have to start it. There's various commands as well that you can use to monitor the data. If there's any errors, you can stop the pipeline, of course. So that's done. And then the last but not least, here you can see the same kind of link used that we did just above, but we're now doing it for MongoDB. So here we again provide the details of the host, the remote host. Okay, what specific database and collections are we interested in? Well, we're interested in the bank database and everything that's in there. And again, SSL mode, the user authority is admin. And then down here, you can see that we've got our credentials. Okay, this is, and remember, this is connecting to a Atlas, MongoDB Atlas environment remotely. And again, we set up this infer pipeline. And give that a moment. There we go. And then we can just say, okay, show me the pipelines. What's currently happening? So you can see here that we've got this one is running. This one, the ATM locations one, is running. This one is stopped. And this bank history has stopped as well. Okay. And so in this case, let's make sure that everything is running. So we say start all pipelines. And we could actually go back and just check this again. And there we go. So all of these are now in the running state. Okay. So everything is up and running, ingesting the data. And of course, once the data are moved across, as long as the system's alive, that pipeline is still, hasn't been shut down or stopped, it will keep going. So as new data arrives into the target system where you're trying to get the data from, it will propagate. That's what change data capture does. Okay. And then here, for example, we could take a look as we just did above. That's for the transactional data. We can have a look at, this is transaction deposits and credits. And there's the ATM locations. Okay. The other tables that have been created. And this is another one. There we go. And then finally from MongoDB, what are we getting in? We're getting in sort of JSON data. And we can have a look at that JSON data here. So you can see here the structure. And again, we can take a look at the some more data there. And the nice thing is that, of course, now that we've got everything in SingleStore, we can actually perform joins across these various tables. So here, for example, we've done exactly that. So we've taken name, email, ATM. Okay, so remember that was one of the sources of data that we have. And then this one, view user details, their associated ATMs and transaction details here. Okay, there we go. So all of this is now being managed by SingleStore for us. And then, of course, it's nice to be able to, if you are familiar with MongoDB, you know that, oh, what have I done wrong? Let's have a look. Let's take a look at the error. Maybe a JWT token has expired or something. Let's have a look. It's a long error message. Let's see. Shared tier username is invalid. Full error. Okay. So sorry about that. My bad. It's obviously not happy about something there. I'll leave that one. Okay. And to try and see if this pipeline will run. Okay. No, same problem. Sorry. Okay. So obviously, let me just switch to this and just, so this is one I ran a little bit earlier. Let's just have a look at the results here. Okay, and then we'll wrap up. So this was fine. A little bit. And one of the things with live demos is that, Murphy's Law, anything that can go wrong will go wrong at the worst possible time. There we go. That's what the output should look like. Okay, so I suspect something in my environment is misconfigured from the time I last ran it. And then you can run these aggregate queries. There we go. That's JSON data being returned and so on. Okay, so and even create visualization. And the nice things about this environment with Jupyter Notebooks is that you have Matplotlib, Seaborn, Plotly, Plotly Go, Plotly Express, lots of possibilities. Okay. All right, then. So let's just wrap up then. So Spaces, Gallery. Okay, so Gallery is built in. Externally, there's a singlestore.com/spaces where you can also access these notebooks. So another way to search and find, and you click on them, it will provision them into the environment for you. Okay. And then just to summarize then, hopefully we've got time for a few questions as well. So we integrate with lots of these language runtimes, frameworks, ETL, CDC, migration tools, streaming, publish, subscribe, security and governance, developer tools. Okay, lots of technologies there. I'm sure you can spot some of the ones that you may be working with today. We can help you. We have this go live acceleration process. Okay, so professional services can help you with projects. So if this is something that you're interested in, and maybe you want a bit more insight beyond what we've discussed today, maybe you discuss your requirements in detail with SingleStore, then we can assess, design and plan, migrate and validate, give you, this post-migration support as well, handhold you through the entire process, and then give you the cutover support as well going forward. There's the customary, we are hiring. Okay, so if you're interested in a career working for SingleStore, just scan the QR code there or just go to singlestore.com/careers. Okay, and there we go. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Okay, one of my favorite quotes from Arthur C. Clarke. So hopefully it's given you some food for thought, some things to think about. Perhaps you're interested enough in SingleStore, go and create the free tier, try it out. Remember, you get credits as well, $600 worth of credits. So if there's things like the CDC, for example, which currently do not work in the free tier, but you want to test them out, the standard tier will be the one to go through. And in case you're wondering, how much does this burn through? Well, the S00, which was the smallest that I was using in the standard tier, and I had that, I think it's US East 1 AWS, it burns through 0.25 credits per hour, tiny amount. And when I joined the company over 3 years ago, I created an account just around the time I joined. And in those days, the company was giving $500 worth of credits. I still have that account today, and I still have credits today because I've managed it very carefully. So, shut down resources when you don't need them. It's great for testing, great for, building small scale POCs. But if you leave things running, obviously, the resources will eventually run out and burn through the credits. So that's something to think about. Okay, and with that, let me hand back to Yukti. So Yukti, have we got any questions? Anything to follow up? And I know we do have these set of slides again to repeat at the end there, but
we actually have questions for you. So
okay.
one question from very early in the session from John Michael. They say that as a beginner programmer in data and Gen AI space, is there a free tier?
Sorry, repeat that question, please, Yukti.
as a beginner programmer in the data and Gen AI space, is there a free tier? I think they're asking about the free tier, and they also had a
Oh,
question
yes,
regarding
yes.
trainings that we
Absolutely. Yes, yes. So the free tier, as I said before, if you follow the link that Yukti has shared, okay, for the cloud trial, sign up. It's like a 1 minute or so of your time. The wizard will just ask you a couple of questions, and then I think you get sent an email, and then you just confirm that yes, you are a human and that you did request the account creation. And once you get into the portal, it will look like very much like this. Okay, so it'll look something like this. And as part of this, remember, I mentioned this a few moments ago. Look under deployments, okay, which is the second link under home. And if you look down now, let me just switch, okay, because I've got a couple of things running here. So what you'll see is, like I said, they've made this so much easier now. You don't even have to create this yourself. Automatically, you will get the free compute resources as well as a database already created for you. And this is the free tier, okay? So, and this is free for life. And if you're wondering, you have a requirement that is beyond the free tier, but not quite something of the standard tier. Is there something in between? Indeed, there is, okay, and it's being rolled out. So for a small fee, you're looking at dollars. You could pay a little bit of money and you get more, okay? You get more power, you get more capability. That is something to think about as well, okay? So there is something in between as well. So this will get you started straight away. As I mentioned in the deck, let me see if I can go back a bit and we can see where that slide was. Here we go. So there we are, free shared tier, okay? So you get the database. It's 4 GB of uncompressed storage, up to 10 tables that you can have, okay? And it supports almost everything. So pipelines, UDF, vector search, ANN index, all of that stuff. You can use all of those technologies. One thing at the moment that's not on there is the CDC, okay, which is why I had to use the standard here. So I'm sorry about that. Again, this is for engineering, product development to decide, if that's coming. I hope it is. That'd be great to see that, but we'll wait. Yeah, Yukti, go ahead. So hopefully that answered the question.
All right. So there is some Francis asked that this they missed the beginning. So is there another service or a complement to other database solutions I assisted with on different vectors? I'm not exactly sure that I understand the question, Francis. So if you can reiterate on that if you're still with us. So one more question from Adrian. They say that is this a continuous migration? How heavy in the terms of performance, and will it be for the MySQL side?
No. So remember, MariaDB is just a fork of MySQL. Yeah. As I mentioned earlier in the webinar, there was a time when SingleStore actually recommended that our customers use the MariaDB JDBC driver because we thought that was more stable and better than the MySQL driver. And so we have our own now, of course, but we are MySQL wire compatible in the same way that MariaDB is MySQL wire compatible. Okay, they are, I mean, yes, they are not identical, but they are similar enough, just as SingleStore is similar enough as well, that the vast majority of tools will work out of the box. The CDC should be fine. And this, remember, is something that's a continuous pipeline. So when you set this up initially, it takes a snapshot. And then subsequently, if whatever new data arrive in the target system, they'll get propagated across to SingleStore. So as I said, one way that you could test this and have some confidence is that, if you're using MariaDB today and you're not quite sure if SingleStore is the right technology for you, you could test this out using this capability and see how it goes, okay? And use SingleStore, set up this CDC pipeline, try SingleStore out for analytics capabilities, which it's awesome at because of the columnar storage, universal storage, and then all the other sort of goodness, the stuff that we talked about earlier, the in-memory processing, the multi-model, and easy integration with these enterprise technologies such as Kafka and Spark and so on. And therefore, you have this opportunity of kind of running systems in parallel, side by side. I mean, it's a chance for you to stay happy with what you currently have. And then if you decide that, yes, SingleStore is, going to meet your future needs and it is a sort of safer option for the future in terms of both business and technical, then at some point in time, you shut down that pipeline, okay? And once the data have all moved across, that will be the new target for wherever your data comes from before, rather than going to MariaDB. Yeah, so as long as the two systems are live, the pipeline is live, it will keep propagating data from one system to the other. Okay, go ahead, Yukti. Any
Right.
other?
So we have more questions. Yeah, we have more questions.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
another question from Francis, they say that can the software be used without coding experience, or like is it like easy to use in terms of expertise?
The product itself, so the SingleStore, remember, is a relational database system. Okay, so if you have some SQL skill, you can get started straight away. Now, obviously, because it's a distributed scale-out architecture, there are some decisions that you need to make in terms of how the data are distributed, setting up appropriate sort of keys and things like this. That's something that we can help you with. But that immediate sort of hitting the ground running kind of thing, the free tier will enable you to do that. And the Jupyter environment that you saw me using there to set things up, great if you're a Python developer. If you want to work with other technologies, say Vercel, for example, Node, any of these kind of JavaScript frameworks, very easy to integrate as well. Yukti, do you remember who was the influencer that we worked with that did the videos for us? I
We
can't.
have two people, Kunal and Anya from
Anya, that's it.
yeah,
Code with Anya. So she's
yes.
awesome. So she does a lot of node development work. Check out her channel on YouTube. Okay, she got tens of thousands, millions of followers, I think. And she puts these videos out. So we worked very closely with her. She did 3 awesome videos for us, building, sort of using the vector capabilities of the product, for example, and then building chatbots using kind of node technology as the front end. So, that's using. I don't have a lot of experience with Node. I've used it a little bit in the past, but my experience is primarily with Java, C, C++, and Python, and therefore I'm a little bit more comfortable in Python. So Jupyter Notebooks are great for Python and great for prototyping. And there's a very forgiving environment. You make a mistake and go back, fix it, rerun the code cell. It's quite a good learning experience as well. So that is what you can do. And again, if you have limited skills, then there are lots of places that you can online through EDX, Coursera, for example, have free training courses there as well that you can skill up, learn a little bit of SQL. But definitely, I think SQL will be very valuable. And then whatever other technology you decide you want to use, whether it's one of these JavaScript frameworks, for example, or if you want to use, say, Java or Python or something else. Anything with the JDBC, ODBC support will be fine as well.
All right, so we have more questions for you. So we have a question from Andrew. So they say that, can I use SingleStore for my big data analytics and decision making for a school? I feel like it's school database, or maybe it's for a school project.
Yes, you can. So the choice then is sometimes there are some requirements in certain industries in terms of confidentiality, personally identifiable information. Banks, for example, are very stringent about this. So you won't find, well, a lot of banks prefer on-prem. So if you want to get started with an on-prem offering, you can do so very easily. So I promised I would show you this. So if you go to the portal, and if you look in the top right here, okay, and if I pull this down, you'll see that one of the options here says licenses. Now, you'll forgive me if I don't click on that, okay? But that will give you the license that you can use to install a 4-node version of SingleStore in your own environment. So if your school has a policy that you want, that they don't allow cloud-based environments, or you're not able to do that, then you can install this internally behind your firewall within your environment, and that would be perfectly fine. And remember, it's SQL, okay? Predominantly, if you've got some SQL skills, you can be up and running very, very quickly, creating tables, storing the data in, and there's lots of ways that you can get the data in. We touched upon some of these today. If you have an environment where it's not personally identifiable information, neither are there any kind of legal or other constraints upon where you can store your data, then the cloud-based environment is a great option. You don't have to install anything. You do need to have some capability to connect to these environments, but as I showed here, for example, if we just click on this, you get all the information you need to connect from various types of systems, whether it's an IDE, an application that you're building. If you've got some BI tool, for example, it will provide you with the necessary connectivity information. So here, for example, for the BI tools, I'll say, okay, I am interested in Power BI. What are the details that I need to connect? And here it provides me with the host, this, okay. The password is hidden here, okay, and the database system. And there is in the free tier, okay, if you just go here, you can download this certificate as well, TLS SSL certificate, which is required. Oh, sorry, I want an arrow, not a box. Okay, which you can get from here. So this is kind of the extra bit of security that you get for the free tier, because it's a shared environment. You are sharing this with lots of other people. Now, they cannot access your database, neither can you look at their database, okay? So that's yours, but because it is using this kind of shared tier, this provides you with the ability to connect and ensure that you are doing so and you are authorized to do so. I've actually been using this recently. It's a one line, just a little bit of extra to the connection string that you provide, the location of the certificate, and it all works fine. So all of this gives you very easy ways to connect to this remote cloud-based environment. Okay,
All
Yuki,
right.
anything
So I
else?
don't have more, like we have questions, but we are over time now,
Oh,
almost
okay.
10. So just quick notes before we wrap up. And so if you can just go to the slide in
Oh,
the
there we
beginning.
go. Yeah, you want to mention the 2 events coming up?
Yeah. So we have amazing events that are coming up. On October 7th, we are presenting FreeDB Face Off on popular demand. We are bringing this back. MySQL versus Postgres for the store free tier. So I feel like they will use paid version of Postgres and they'll compare it with free tier. So it's going to be really fun. And so Madhukar is going to host that session. So if you are interested, he's also a regular speaker at our webinars and a technical evangelist and our CMO. So if you're interested in that, please feel free to attend it, because his sessions are generally very hands-on, and like they will, it's like you can follow in actual real time and make the best out of your time. So, and on October 15th, we have building enterprise grade rack with AWS agents and SingleStore. So this is a partner webinar with guests coming from Amazon. So if any of these topics are interesting to you, feel free to RSVP right now, and I will see you there. Uh, Again, for folks that are attending from San Francisco, please feel free to get the tickets for SingleStore now. This is an in-person AI conference that we are bringing in, because you might know that SingleStore is very active in doing digital events. So when we do a in-person event, like that's solely for us, and like we are not exactly a sponsor, and it's as an independent party. So this is like a very big deal for us. So if you can, just pay a visit, I'm very sure it will be a good use of your time. And if you want any discount coupons, you can feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn and I'll be happy to provide them to you. I'm very sorry we don't publicly release a lot of them, because like free codes sometimes, like they just get, spammed everywhere, and then I don't even know, like lot of crowd shows up. So we did not want that. So if you're interested, feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn, and I'll provide them for you. So thanks for attending, and I hope to see you next time. Have a great rest of the day. Yeah, and if you have any questions, feel free to email us at team@singlestore.com. We'll be happy to take up your request. So thanks, Akmal, for joining, and thanks everyone for joining. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.